Welcome, everyone, to the second session of this retreat. Apologies for being a bit late. I just had a coughing fit for 10 minutes right before the session started. So, welcome. I hope you all performed the exercise that I gave you in closing during yesterday's session, the first session, where you laid down flat, hands on the heart, and just surrender all the arrogance that you've developed over your life when it comes specifically to thinking that you know something about yourself, even more specifically in the realm of your worthiness and your acceptability and your lovability. And I hope that was a pleasant exercise for you. And also, of course, you'll benefit from doing this exercise more than once, most likely, unless you were really successful and all it took you was 30 minutes to clear a lifetime of arrogance. But might not be the case for all of you right away. So you may want you may want to redo this exercise, a few times a month. I'm going to start by reading a quote from one of my favorite pieces of work called The Law of One. Many of you will be familiar with that material by now if you've been participating in my work for a while. I'm leaving out certain sentences because it gets quite technical, but I'll summarize it here. The heart of the, so this is by Ra. The heart of the discipline of the personality is threefold. One, or you could say step one, know yourself. Two, accept yourself. And three, become the creator. Now, essentially what we're doing when we're tapping into God's love is we are in process of that third step, becoming the creator. And this is why I said it is immensely helpful to come to an acceptance of yourself and the stuff and the judgment and so forth, because that really clears the path to becoming the creator. Now, essentially, from a timeless point of view, you are already that source. You are already that creator. And you could replace the word creator with God here, if you will. And Ra proceeds with saying that third step, becoming the creator, is that step which, when accomplished, renders one the most humble servant of all, transparent in personality, and completely able to know and accept other selves. To become the creator, or God, is to become all that there is. There is then no personality in the sense with which the adept begins its learned teaching. So the heart of the discipline of the personality is threefold. One, know yourself, means recognize what's going on, recognize how you're feeling, recognize what you're doing, recognize your patterns, recognize this little inner conditioned gremlin, this substitute parent that you created as a child to take care of you because your parents weren't perfect. No offense. It's just the nature of humanity, right? So in order to take care of yourself, you outsourced a whole bunch of your free will because you weren't mature enough in your thinking, in your intellectual capacity. Your intellect wasn't enlightened yet, wasn't matured yet. Plus, you're dealing with the veil, the three-dimensional veil of forgetfulness, not fully knowing, not fully seeing who you are, not fully experiencing the oneness with all that there is. So under those conditions of the incarnate state in 3D, with imperfect parents, you have developed a substitute parent, something to keep you safe, something, a program, if you will. I often call this the gremlin, inner gremlin. Many call it the ego, but I prefer different terms. And so this gremlin is like this super intelligent artificial intelligence. It's an AI system basically that you have created, you have produced. So you've given more than 90% of your capacity for intelligence, the bandwidth of your mind, and you've outsourced it to the unconscious and the subconscious, as modern psychologists would term those domains of your mind. And you've done this out of a single desire, which is to have your needs met. And ultimately, that boils down to the need for survival. That's like the core one. So, roughly put, generally put, I'm not going to go too deeply into this. I just want to give some context for if I use the term gremlin. And I use the term gremlin because it's both kind of creepy, but it's also kind of cute. You know, the gremlins, if you see them, they're kind of endearing, but they're also, you don't want them in your bed. So, it's kind of like that with the ego, no? So, this program was perfectly valid when you were a child, when you were growing up, because you didn't know any better. You didn't have the enlightened intellectual capacities. You weren't mature as you are now. And for many of you, the same applies. Still, you're still not fully mature, but that's not because you don't have the capacity or the age required to be mature. At this point, it's because you've outsourced a lot of your intelligence to this up and unconscious way of operating. That's now like a program that's acting as if it's you. Sometimes I've also called it the imposter self. So, a reference from Michael Langford. So, the imposter self, why that's a relevant term is because this gremlin pretends to be you and you're buying it every single second right now as you're listening to me. The one that's listening to me, that thinks it's listening to me, is the gremlin, it's not you. Often we think, oh, well, I've seen through my ego, I've seen through my gremlin. But no, it's the one that's listening to me right now. It's the one that thinks it's seen through the gremlin. That's the part that's still programmed. That's the part that's still operational. Now, if you look deeper, yes, there's an awareness within that is untouched by the gremlin. But for most of us, this programming, this sub and unconscious artificial intelligence, that's borrowing energy and intelligence from your mind that could otherwise be available to you, exclusively to you. It could be yours. The mind could be yours, but it's not completely yours, is it? Because you have incessant patterns, thinking, protecting yourself, biases, preferences, and so forth. This is all a system set up to protect you from the unknown, to protect you from uncertainty, to protect you from what could possibly harm you, or to protect you from other people who have demonstrated that they're not very good at fulfilling your needs, your emotional needs, your needs being expressed and not being heard, and so forth. So I just wanted to give you that little bit of context, that there is this pattern. There's this cute little gremlin that's outdated at this point, but it's still there. You've housed it within your consciousness for a while now. So it's started to become very familiar to you. You really think it's you. You really think that the one who's thinking and reasoning and interpreting and discerning, that person is you. Ultimately, that's not true. Now, and that's why I use this quote, and I'll rephrase this, or I'll repeat this. The third step, becoming the creator, is that step which, when accomplished, renders one the most humble servant of all, transparent in personality. That's a different state. Transparent in personality, and completely able to know and accept other selves. There is then no personality in the sense with which the adept begins its learning journey. So, as your consciousness empties itself from, or rather integrates those levels, those layers, and you stop outsourcing your free will to these conditioned programs and biases and fears, then it's like that energy, that intelligence streams back into your full conscious capacity. You are once again you. You're not harboring an enemy of the state, this cute little gremlin in the back seat of your car that just won't leave your vehicle, that whispers in your ear all the time, that distorts what you're hearing. You're not even hearing, for the most part, what people are actually saying, for instance. That's just one example. And you're not really seeing a lot of what's going on because there's a preconditioned filter that's already there that's very selectively blind. It's very selectively audibly blind. It doesn't hear what's being said. It doesn't see what's happening. It doesn't completely clearly feel what's truly occurring and so forth. So again, just a little bit of context so that you know what I mean when I say the word gremlin. It's not a negative term, okay? That's why I try to steer away from the word ego a little bit, because in a lot of these Enlightenment teachings, the ego has been really made out to be this black and white kind of negative thing. So picture it like this cute little, but yet also a little bit annoying gremlin that has overstayed its welcome. And it's time for you to take back your power. That's really the message here. It's time for you to be one being. Because how many of you are there? If you scan your direct experience right now, how many of you are there? How many yous are there in your direct experience of being? In your consciousness of I am, of I exist, how many yous can you detect? Isn't it just one? Isn't it just you? Isn't it just this? You? Here? I am. I exist. I am. So, but then in front of that I am, or in front of that basic naked awareness of existing, of being, you, just you, in this nakedness, in this purity, then there occurs these layers, and we've outsourced these, a lot of our intelligence to a certain program in order to take care of ourselves. That's why I also call it the substitute parent, because it's the parent we never had. And it's the parent that's always with us. It's always there for us to protect us. And it's always there to whisper in our ears what to do, what not to do, what to allow in, what not to allow in, and so forth. Okay, I think that's enough context on that. So step one, knowing yourself, is basically knowing the gremlin. It's not so much yet knowing your true self. That is only happening when you become the creator in step three. So step one is know yourself, which is more accurately, you could say, know your not self. Know what you're not. But the not self is very much active in your experience. Right now, it might be filtering, it might be biasing, it might be hesitant to accept certain things I'm saying, or it might be in full agreement with what I'm saying. So this filter is operational right now. It's not a problem. But it is crucial that we gain greater awareness, greater penetrative, clearer awareness of what's running the show sometimes, so that we can know ourselves, or know our not selves, know our operational mechanism. And when we do that, we're already freer of it, because anything you recognize is not controlling you blindly, at least. Now, you have to agree with it before it can continue to run the show. But if you're not aware of it, if you're oblivious of it, if you're blind to it, if it's a filter that you don't even know you have, then how can you choose whether or not you still agree with it from that higher vantage point of your true self, of the only I amness that's really present in your direct experience? It becomes a little harder. So it's very important that we do begin to recognize our operational mechanisms. I like what Ajahn Shanti said once. I'm paraphrasing. He says, instead of trying to find enlightenment, instead, moment to moment, be aware of how you're actively unenlightening yourself. So, because if you see that, if you see how you're actively unenlightening yourself, then you're already much freer of it. You already have much more free choice in terms of what you wish to be constituted as, what you wish to identify with, what you wish to abide in, what you wish to know is true about yourself. But if you don't recognize the pattern, if you're just blindly thinking and responding to every object in your experience, including your mental experience, every object, every mental object, every relational object, every emotional object, if you just keep bouncing around like a ping pong ball between these mental, emotional, and physical objects of your perception, then who are you? Where's the center there? Where's the awareness of being? Where's that holistic wholeness of I am and I know that I am? So to know yourself, to know the stuff of yourself, basically the contents, it's another way of saying it. to know the contents of your experience. Your thoughts are your contents, your emotions are your contents, the physical objects are the contents, your relationships are the contents. Basically, anything that you can appoint some kind of a form to, some kind of a label, some kind of a definition to, some kind of a shape or color or dimension to. Those are all, you could say, objects inside of perception, inside of that base I amness, that naked awareness that right now is the true listener of what I'm saying. And see for a moment if you can glimpse that. Right now, as I'm speaking, there is a power of awareness. There's a power of recognition that is ever active, regardless of what you're thinking about what I'm saying. You can be actively listening to me with your mind or not actively listening to me. You can be kind of zoned out. But in both states, both when the mind is participating actively with the form and the definition and giving interpretation to my words, but also when it's not interpreting anything I'm saying, or when it's kind of half dozed off, maybe daydreaming. In both states, nevertheless, there is an awareness that hears the sound vibrations that my voice is producing. That power of awareness is that I amness. It is that core, naked, base background identity that never changes. It is like a background on top of which the contents of your life, mental, emotional, spiritual, physical objects, relational objects, are projected. Often I've called these appearances because they appear. The awareness doesn't appear. And this is synonymous with God. God, your base essence, your intrinsic nature does not appear. You see, you can't say, oh, hey, God appeared in my experience. Because what was there before that then? Was there another God before God? No, God has to always be permeating every single cell of your experience, every single particle of this holographic tapestry, this canvas, this dreamscape of perception. Does it make sense? Right? God is fundamental. It's intrinsic. It's innate. It's here now. It's the fabric, like I was saying. It's the fabric of the shirt instead of the shape of the shirt. It's gold instead of the ring, right? Here, we could focus on the ring, the shape of it, what it means. But really what it is gold. And if you're no longer fooled by form so much, if you allow yourself to become less distracted by what appears to have form and label and interpretation, then you are beginning to shine that intrinsic light of God straight through the illusion of that gremlin way of thinking and operating and programmed interpretations. And this is where that peace, this is where that abidance, this is where that love of God begins to become this fragrant experience that just permeates every other perception. This is when you start to know God in its formlessness, not as an idol, not as an object, not as a guru, not as a statue, not as a picture, but as the living, intrinsic, inseparable space that is always present, whether you're feeling down, whether you're feeling high, whether you're judging yourself, whether you're in total acceptance of yourself. This is why I've called it quantum acceptance, is the fact that everything is already accepted, including your non-acceptance, because God does not only live in one house. It doesn't live in a particular land. It doesn't live on a particular planet. It doesn't go by any cultural rules. It doesn't only live in certain morals. God is all across the board, ever present, intrinsically here all the time. Right now, it's listening to my voice. God is speaking and God is listening, all simultaneously, through the illusory filter of separation, duality, these different vehicles. But essentially, I am talking to myself. You could say, you are listening to yourself. So beyond the mind's power of discernment and interpretation and labeling, there is a power of knowing that has never left your experience. In fact, you've never experienced anything outside of it without it, and you never shall. You've never experienced an outside world. You've only ever experienced what state of being you were in, what frequency you were vibrating at, what state of consciousness you were occupying, you were conscious of, you were calibrated to with your attention. You only ever experience what you experience, very simply put. I mean, no one has ever experienced anything outside of what they experience. The only thing you've ever experienced is an experience. You've never experienced a non-experience. You've never experienced the world. You've only experienced an experience that you've called the world. But that experience has occurred inside of consciousness due to awareness, due to consciousness. It's made up of awareness, just like your dream at night. You never experienced a world in your dream at night. You've only experienced the experience you were dreaming. And that all happened in the mind. And you know that when you wake up into your physical state, you remember, you know, it was all a dream. It was all the mind conjuring up appearances, perceptions. The dynamic energy of the mind was hallucinating, it was imagining, it was producing this miraculous illusion of space and time and distance and physical bodies and relationships. It's not that different, my friends. The waking dream is not that different. And this is what you realize when you wake up into God, into the essence of all that is. And you become, as Ra says, one with all that there is. To become the creator is to become all that there is. Doesn't mean that your conscious physical mind is suddenly aware of what's happening on all the trillions of planets in every little nanosecond, nanocontainer of the universe. It just means that, not just, it is profound, but it means that you are, your identity, your sense of what you are is shifting from form to formless, from appearance to essence, from transient or appearing, disappearing, appearing, disappearing, appearing, disappearing, to timeless. From bias and personal preference. Not that you won't have preferences, because I still don't really enjoy goat cheese. But your identity shifts. As a person, I still don't appreciate goat cheese, but that's not my identity, you know? So if I'm force-fed goat cheese, I still don't like it. Mesh, stop doing that. Stop force-feeding me goat cheese. But the essence of my identity is not obscured by that experience. I am more identified with the essence of all that there is, that non-dual universal presence, than I am identified with the appearances of the preferences that come and go, come and go, come and go. So in a sense, you could say I'm abiding as a stability that's unaffected by the display of form, yet has an intimate unity and inseparability with it. Because just like in your dream at night, all things happen inside of that awareness, inside of that mind. It's not separate. So to be non-attached, if you will, or to be free, to abide as this naked state of God, of isness, of I am, doesn't mean there's no intimacy. Doesn't mean it's a mental, aloof, disassociated state where you're just the observer. You know, that's a stage you can go through if you want to. You don't even have to. You can bypass that stage for the most part. Depends on what kind of teachings you follow and how the language of that teaching is kind of indoctrinating the experience of what it's like to be awareness. Because language is very powerful. Language really does shape and texture and flavor and bias and distort your experience of God. That's why I use as many different ways as I can to describe it so that your mind becomes independent from the words used. So it can begin to see it from all these angles and all these flavors and all these textures, so that a truer, more mystical, more intimate, more silent understanding of God dawns that transcends any particular path or angle or verbiage into it. So God is formless. Let's rest with this understanding a little bit more before we proceed. And let's relate this to the experience of self-acceptance for a little bit longer as well. So if you are in a state of resistance towards what you are, or judgment, let's say judgment of what you are, what you've done, what you experience, if you're not there yet, not being good enough, and so forth, huh? You all know this state. I mean, it's very human, it's very normal, no problem. But just recognize it, know yourself, so that you can accept yourself. If you don't know what's going on, it's harder to accept it. It's harder to forgive it. It's harder to release it back to the basic space of God, the basic space of the Creator, the basic space of source awareness. So it's easier if you know what's going on. And you can see that it's not really who you are. It's just a little gremlin talking. It's just a little programmed filter. It's just a little self-preservation safety mechanism that's trying to keep you safe. It's that outdated substitute parent you no longer really need, but you think you still do because you're so used to it. Just chattering away in the backseat of your car. This like little hitchhiker that you hired when you were 4 years old because mommy and daddy couldn't provide you with the emotional support that you needed. So to see that that's not who you are, but just to understand that's part of the contents and it's part of the ways that you're distorting your perception of content. It's how you're interpreting life. It's how you're filtering what's now, what's here. It's how you're obscuring yourself from yourself. So to just acknowledge this, just to recognize this without the judgment this time. That acceptance, going from resistance state to acceptance state, self-acceptance specifically here, going from a self-judgment state, the contraction of self-judgment, the pain, the separation of self-judgment, to the wholeness and the ease and that soothing experience of unwinding the judgment and releasing it into a state of acceptance. What this does is it shifts the mind from form and label and separation to this more naked, formless understanding or state of being, which is synonymous with the aperture opening to let in more of the light of God that's already accomplished. Again, we're not trying to create the creator. We're not trying to become the creator in terms of an attainment that we have to do. The attainment occurs when we open up to what's already true. In order to do that, we need to recognize that our biases and our judgments and our beliefs are the factors that seem to be obscuring this formless essence of God's love. Now, as I say that, it's not even entirely true. Nevertheless, it is helpful. And I'll explain a little bit what I mean by this. And I've already done this, but I'm going to repeat it because we're so used to thinking linearly. We're so used as a mind to think in terms of black or white, this or that. And it is simultaneous. You can be in a state of self-judgment and still recognize God's love. So again, it's the good news. Your recognition of God's love is not really dependent on your self-acceptance. And it kind of works both ways. If you deepen your self-acceptance, the release of judgment and arrogance and insistence that you think you know, that you think you are the judge of life, that you think you know what is right and what's wrong, what's true and what's not true, how worthy you are and so forth. When you release that acceptance, you will naturally open up to the light of God. But also, if you open up to the light of God, regardless of how resistant you are at the moment about your human self, acceptance will occur. So you can kind of, pick your favorite here. Do you want to recognize God's love and through that accept yourself? Or do you want to accept yourself and through that enter into the awareness of God's love? Does this make any sense? Just kind of nod your heads if it does. Okay. So, and what is acceptance? It's basically a way of relaxing. It's not some weird mystical state. Acceptance is recognizing that there is something that is a little contracted, that feels a little tight. There's an insistence in your thinking. There's an insistence in your focus. There is a little nod in your attention, in the stream of your consciousness. There's a little nod. There's a little distortion, a little deviation, a little nod. When you relax, first of all, when you recognize it, it's important. Again, know yourself so that you can accept it more fully. So know that this nod, this feeling of resistance is there. And as you are aware of that feeling, that nod, already it starts to release, no? Because when you're in that blind state where you're just like, you don't feel really good, but you're not really taking a pause to acknowledge and be present to the fact that you don't feel optimal, then it's just kind of running the show. And your whole day is this ping-ponging back and forth between different forms of resistance to different kinds of mental, spiritual, emotional, relational objects that occur within the unified dreamscape of awareness. I know those are a lot of words, but just kind of let it come through. Don't try to understand everything I'm saying. Just kind of let it be a transmission, if you will. Just kind of dance and relax on the waves of my words, because they do have a power if you allow them to just massage those knots out of your system. You don't have to understand what I'm saying. There's a transmission quality to those words as well. So when those knots release, through acknowledgement that there is a little tightness, and then an acceptance of that, a forgiveness of that, a loving approach in your awareness towards that tension, it is like you're melting, like this ice cube is kind of like melting back into the ocean, the waterness that it was made of to begin with. So we could say that self-judgment is God in a condensed or contracted state, like an ice cube. You're just kind of swimming around in the ocean made of salt water. An ice cube made of salt water, made of ocean. Ocean in the form of an ice cube, just kind of bobbing on the surface, feeling like it has this separate, this edge to it, this skin line, this separation. And when we relax, first acknowledge, hey, I feel a little tight. I feel like I'm this little ice cube bobbing on it. Something about it feels unnatural. I don't feel quite blended with all that there is. When we acknowledge that contraction, that tightness, and we bring this loving awareness to it, this accepting awareness, it's a relaxation. It's a letting go. It's just a relaxation. That's all acceptance is. Notice the tightness. Forgive it. Relaxation is synonymous with forgiveness. I love the word forgiveness. It's like you're giving up, you're giving away, you're giving back, you're forgiving. You're giving for God, forgiving. So forgive yourself. Give it back to source. Give it back to the nature of what it consists. Don't tightly hold on to certain components, experiences, emotions inside your dreamscape. Let it be a full dance, a full dreamscape that is this unified field of miraculous illusion, miraculous perception. Like how is this even occurring as an experience? How are you even experiencing this? Out of all the infinite possibilities, why this? How this? We don't notice this often. We're so in our matrix. I'd say roughly half of the year I spent in a more isolated environment or condition, and half of the year, roughly, on and off, not necessarily 6 months, but roughly 6 out of 12 months per year, I spent more time in a more isolated, like sort of away from city life, away from the matrix, the densest part of the matrix. And it's just either me by myself or with a couple people or with the team, which is a different frequency. It's a different kind of consciousness. So it's still kind of not plugged into the matrix, not right there. So, and then half the time I spent time, quote unquote, in the matrix, walking around the city, sitting, the groceries and stuff like that. And the contrast of that going back and forth over the years, it's amazing. I mean, it's miraculous. Just the other day, I was sitting in this little village eating something, and it's hard to describe, but it's like most people have just this complete bubble around them. It's like they're inside of a bubble, and they're oblivious. First of all, they're oblivious to the miracle of I am. They don't recognize, they're not stopping to recognize that they exist. It's just not a topic. Probably months have gone by since they've ever wondered why they even exist, or how come they even exist, or even that they exist. When we don't recognize that we exist and how weirdly miraculous that is, what it is, we're typically just in the bubble, just living the life, just living the program, just bumping around against objects. And that's why there's so little gratitude typically in the human world. There's so little recognition of the magic and the mystery and the unity and the love and the magic and the potential that is so rich in every moment. And people don't recognize this hardly ever. And therefore, they're just living in a bubble of concepts, interpretations, gremlin, operational. And they're so conflated with it, like a like the background paper of a sticker paper that you have to sort of separate. It's a transparent piece of paper attached to a solid white piece of paper, like a sticker. But it's so conflated, you can't really see the difference. Most people can't see the difference. They think they are their thinking process. They believe, they feel, they're enmeshed, they're in a bubble, in a zombie-like state. The Matrix. The Matrix is just your own mind. It's not really out there. It's just not being aware. That's what the Matrix is. And automatic pilot, automatic pilot, automatic pilot, and learning in this state, in this sort of zombified state of the bubble, is very slow and automatic. You don't really learn as much as you would love to learn at a soul level, at a spiritual level, because you're just not attentive enough. You're not appreciative and grateful enough for the fact that you exist, for Source, for God, which is what all this is. What else would it be made of? It has to come back down to this one source. It has to. All things has to have emerged, has to have appeared out of an infinite potential. Call it God, if you will. Call it the creator, call it source. And right now, it's staring you in the face because all there is that. So literally every single cell of your experience, every single sensation, every single thought, no matter how fast firing and chaotic it might be at times, it's all just bouncing light particles that are just reflecting God back to itself. It's trying to remind you, first of all, that you exist. What did God say to Moses? I am that I am. What's your name? I am that I am. What am I? I am the fact that I am. The fact that the experience and fact that you are, which you cannot deny right now, you cannot deny that you exist. If you hear my voice, you must exist. Prior to anything, any content, any interpretation, you must be there. You must be here. You must be. So you are, that much is obvious. But the fact or experience that you are is what you are. I am that I am. I am the fact that I am. That's one interpretation of that statement. What I am is the fact that I am. What I am is that I am. So if you can get in touch with, this is a more sort of direct path to starting to experience, intuitively feel the presence of God in your own consciousness, in your own here-ness, is by simply slowing down the mind, just like relaxing the tension of the thinking gremlin, just know, just for a few seconds, just know. Shut up that little gremlin in the backseat. Just know, I have no interest in anything you, dear mind, that I think is me, but is not, have to tell me right now. I'm not interested in myself for just a few seconds. For a few seconds, I'm going to belong to God. Not to myself, to God. Because what's myself? I don't even know what myself is. At this point, it's just this raging, cute, but kind of outdated gremlin. So let me assume that I do not know what I am, that I am conflated, that I am intertwined in ways I do not fully see yet with this program, the substitute parent, this thinking mind, this conceptualizing, labeling mind. So let me say to myself, no, stop it. Say stop to yourself. For the next few seconds, I do not belong to myself. I belong to existence itself, to God. And in that openness, in those few seconds of stopping the mind, or at least stopping any interest in your thinking sense of self, in that openness, suddenly a space opens up. A deeper dimension of naked awareness becomes aware of its own isness, its own existing. I am that I am. Suddenly you know that you are. And that is God. God said, I am that I am. This means God is accessible because you are aware of my voice. Therefore, you must be, and you can recognize that you are. And the more you allow your attention to submerge back in, allow the ice cube to melt back into the waterness, the oceanness, the essential recognition of I am, of I exist. Experientially, just recognize it. Don't think it. It's a good start to think I am, but it's a deeper dimension. Right now, you can be conscious of the very experiential fact that you exist. This is sort of a direct practice into recognizing God. And this will, over time, unleash more and more. It will open your heart, the gates to love. It's here right now. It's hearing my voice. It's what's speaking to you, and it's what's hearing the words. It shines through all the definitions of your mind, regardless of whether you like this or not like this. It is there, vividly, self-illuminated, illuminated by its own nature, by its own power of sentience, of cognizance, of knowing. And so allow yourself to be enlightened from the inside out by saying no for a few seconds, a couple times an hour. Just say radically no. Not interested in anything I have to say to myself right now. Then you will see you are not what you think you are. Then this deeper domain of God will open up, and then the little gremlin will simply be accepted to death. God will love your gremlin to death. You don't have to fight it. You just have to open up to God's love. Because then it's like holding a candle flame in front of the sun. Right now you think you are smart and intelligent and you know things. That's the little candle flame. It's the little gremlin that's protected you for so long. There's a little spark of light of I know who I am. But it's really the arrogance that you've been training yourself to believe in. And when you suddenly turn away, turn the other cheek, turn away from this little candlelight, as hard as that might be in the beginning, because you're so attached to this little source of light, this little control mechanism of I know who I am and what is real and what's not real and what's true and what's not true. But if you dare for just a few seconds to say, no, I'm not interested in the light of the ego. I'm not interested in the shenanigans of my thinking self, of what I think I know. I am done for the next few seconds. I'm done with arrogance. I do not know. And you turn your gaze towards the I am that I am, the presence, the sun, the light of the sun. You'll be laughing at the flame like the sun does. It does not compute, it does not compete, it does not compare. And so by knowing God, you don't have to worry about your gremlin. It will naturally dissolve. It will naturally surrender. The only reason you're holding on to your candle with that little light source is because it's the only light source you know consciously. If you begin to know a much greater, vaster, infinite, eternal light source consciously, then you will naturally shift your investment and allegiance and interest from the thinking self to the timeless presence of the Creator. And therefore you will become the Creator once again, which you never really left, but you created some layers of illusion. You were staring blindly at this little spot of light of what you know. God's in the unknown, my friends. It's in the infinite mystery. As Ra says, it all begins and ends in mystery. No teaching can compete with the Alpha and the Omega of the mystery of God. It is a timeless, infinite mystery. It can never fully be known. It can be you can be it, but you cannot know it fully. Because it doesn't even know itself fully yet. That's why creation appears. It is still, God is still exploring who it is and what it's capable of, and all the infinite multitudinous ways in which it can express itself and know itself, and hallucinate about itself, and dream about itself. That's what life is. An infinite dream of the Creator expressing and knowing itself, of God expressing and knowing itself. So even God doesn't know who it is quite yet, what it is capable of. God is still a mystery to itself, and it will always be that way because it is infinite. It has no beginning and no ending. Because it is infinite, even God cannot ever complete its self-knowing. That's why creation after creation reemerges. Even after the dissolution of the entire universe, there shall be a rebirth, a reincarnation of the entire grand illusion of this multiverse. Because the Creator is ever curious, and infinity ever wants to know itself and express itself. And here you are, an extension of that, a manifestation of that, the outcome of the Creator's curiosity. And here you are thinking with your physical human conditioned mind that you know what's best for you and what isn't, that you know who you are and who you aren't, that you know what's right and what's wrong, that you know what God is. Sorry. With our minds, we think we know what God is. Coming from God into this self-judgmental little world of the veiled human state. And then we think we have a concept of what it is. We got to surrender to the mystery at some point, my friends. It cannot be known. If not even God knows the full extent of its infinite nature, then how can we assume that we do with our conditioned 30, 40, 50, 60-year-old little physical brain? At some point, you've got to admit defeat to God. And this is when you come back home. And this is when you realize yourself as one with God, as one with that mystery. This is liberation. And this is when love will be automatic. This is when you will know that at the deepest part of yourself, you are invincible. You are invincibly free. And therefore, love is automatic. When you're free, love is automatic. If you're contained, if you are in a self-made prison of ideas and illusion and arrogance and pride, you cannot love. You can pretend to be nice. That's the best you can do. But you cannot love. Only God loves. No human has ever loved. Humans have opened themselves up to God's love to a lesser or greater extent, but no human has ever loved and never will. Only God loves. The human can only prefer, which is not a problem. I'm not judging it. It's just the mechanics of it. A human cannot love. You cannot do love. Because if it appears suddenly, if it's here today and it wasn't here yesterday, how could it be love? So if you're creating love today, it's a good attempt. But just understand the mechanics of it, nothing wrong with it, but the mechanics of it is what you're doing is you're opening your aperture to the love that was already there, but it was obscured from you by your own arrogance, by your own mindless thinking. And in the pause of mind, there is the I am that remains, that is indestructible. When you stop thinking, you still exist. In fact, you know the fact that you exist that much clearer. This is the beginning of getting to know God directly through the power of mind, through the power of consciousness. And to then surrender to that, to relax into that, allows the aperture to open to this automatic love. But only God loves. We can either align to that, be open to that, be receptive of that, let it come through us, or we can be closed off to it by thinking that we know. And this is the real power behind the statement, thy will is my will. Because when we have this little programmed will that thinks it needs this or wants this or knows this, then my will is separate from thy will. And it creates this barrier, it closes the aperture, and then we suffer. So as much as we like to know that we're righteous and that we know, and hold on to that little flame of light, it's really detrimental to ourselves to be arrogant and prideful and to think that we know. The mystery is much more beneficial to us as a being. It feels much better to surrender to the mystery and to recognize the fact that we exist and to merge with that. I hope this didn't go over too many heads. If it does, again, allow just the transmission to flow forth. Allow it to relax something in you, perhaps, some ancient conditioning, and just let it work its magic. You don't have to fully understand everything I said. And feel free to, of course, review this, rewatch this, and treat it like a guided meditation almost, which it kind of was. Now, for some more practical tools, some more me as a human being, what can I do to enhance my access to this liberating love? And one thing is forgiveness of self, but also forgiveness of other. So I'm sure that most of you have some kind of a story, some kind of a memory, something that you don't feel completely harmonious with, someone that did something or didn't do something that you feel, when you think about it, it's like, there's just a little contraction there, there's a little pain, there's a little betrayal, there's a little abandonment, there's a little conflict of some kind, right? Any opportunity like that is an opportunity. Any experience like that is a great opportunity to practice surrendering to God. Practice opening your aperture to God's love. Because if you as a person, again, the bubble that thinks it knows something, one way to pop that bubble is to give of yourself to something else, to forgive, to forgive, to release. So if you have the courage to just for a moment, and I'm not a big fan of bypassing your emotions, and you have the right to feel how you feel. You have the right to feel betrayed, and you have the right to communicate that and all that. So that's all valid. It really is, and it can be very powerful. But for this particular exercise, what if you could just forgive all of that? Forgive the debt that other people owe you in all ways, physically, financially, relationally, emotionally, romantically, whatever it is. Can you forgive the whole thing? Like genuinely, not to cover it up. Can you genuinely reach such a profoundly courageous, brave level of yourself, of your own willingness to know that you do not know, that although you might be right from many points of views, it still does not come close to the infinite mystery, which is the truth of God. So you might be right, but you're pinching yourself off from truth in the process of being right. So yes, it's valid. You're right. This person did that to you, or they didn't do that to you when they said they would. And you have all the rights to communicate that, and that can even be a beautiful reflection for them that they need to hear. So don't shy away from your human relational honor and integrity and communication skills. But behind that, for your own sake, let God's love shine through and let it reveal that nothing really major is going on here in terms of your relationships and your ideas and your conflicts. Let yourself transcend to a deeper domain of forgiveness where you don't hold on to what they did or didn't do. You might still communicate it because you see it's off, and it's good to correct behavior. It's good to reflect that in a loving way, sometimes for yourself or your own ease, and sometimes purely out of service to others. You can take on that role of, hey, even though you feel already completely forgiven and loved, you can still take on the role of saying, hey, this isn't cool. I don't think this is the highest integrity. I don't think this is serving that being by behaving in this way and not getting it reflected. So I'm going to reflect this to them as a person so that they can learn and they can get more into alignment with themselves if they so choose to use that feedback. However, again, on a deeper level, can you forgive yourself for holding the grudge, perhaps? And can you forgive others in your life? Completely, off the hook. Let them off the hook. Let them off the hook. You know how much it weighs to carry all these people behind you on hooks, chains and hooks? If you let them off the hook, it's so good for you. So good for your energy body, for your alignment, for your nervous system, for your overall aperture opening back to God, remembering the true love that you desire to be. Do you desire to be a grudgeful person? Do you desire to be in conflict with relationships? Do you desire to hold a grudge? I don't think you do. It's not what your heart craves. It's not what the God in you yearns for. The God in you yearns for the magic of unconditional automatic love and the freedom and the power and the invincibility that gives you. So find within yourself, attain to the courage. It's about courage, my friends. In this relational world, it's all about courage. Courage is what will grant you access to all those deeper domains of the Creator that are already wide openly available to you in every nanosecond, right here, listening to my voice. Completely wide open, available like the sky. Right here, ever present, like space itself. God's love is like space itself, ever present, ever available, never closes down, never judges anything. Everything that's ever happened passes through the screen of God uninterrupted. God's light radiates throughout all matter effortlessly. It's like neutrinos. They just pass straight through matter. They hardly ever interact with matter. They just pass through everything. Some of the most abundant particles in the universe. And they have zero or hardly any mass to them. They pass through everything. They don't interact with matter for the most part. It's like that. God's love is like that. Like pure space. All permeating, all pervasive. Did you know that every second, 100 trillion neutrinos pass through your body? 100 trillion pass through your body every second. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi. There you go, 300 trillion neutrinos just pass through your body uninterrupted. It didn't touch any of your molecular structures. That's God for you. And the way to access that is to surrender to this pure naked awareness that already exists before you take on any interpretation of this moment. When you stop describing this moment, there's a naked moment of just being aware. In that moment, God can be awoken to, the nature of God, its love, its formlessness, its ever-presence, its eternity, its timelessness, its beyondness, its intimacy, its ever-presence can be awoken to. But you got to surrender to it if you want it to become juicy. If you just keep it as a mental recognition, oh yeah, awareness, oh yeah, I'm aware, that's still very good. It's still very good. But you also want to include the feeling into it. You want to include the devotion into the surrender, the feminine, if you will. That's really when it becomes a whole, mystical, mysterious completion. That's when you be in love with God, and God is in love with you. And that's where the invincibility and the liberation and the power and the energy comes from, source. Then you're not of this world. And you'll know it because less and less people will be into you. But that's okay. There is a growing number of people that is moving in that direction. So the world is changing now. Hence this retreat as well at this timing. So let's bring God back into our lives. Let's separate it from, let's re-honor the fact that we exist and that we did not do that with our minds. We did not do that with our bodies. Our pure existence, consciousness itself, I am. It's a magical mystery that can only be appreciated for a second and abiding in what remains and surrendering to that, having faith in that, forgiving people. Forgive. You will see that when you forgive anybody, even for something they didn't do, like just practice on an unsuspecting stranger in the street, like, I forgive you. Maybe don't go up to them, although you could. I've done things like that sometimes if it felt truly inspired, just because I felt like maybe they needed that or whatever. And it can be beautiful. Like imagine a stranger comes up to you and said, "Hey, I just want to let you know I completely forgive you for anything that's ever happened that you've ever done. I completely forgive you and I love you. Thank you." Now, you might think, "Whoa, that's crazy." But something would change, wouldn't it? Something would be touched within you. You would remember that moment when go back home in the evening to your family to debrief about your day. This would have stuck with you. God's love is contagious, and it spreads fast once that aperture opens times 10, which is the intent of this retreat, that the aperture to God's love is open times 10 for all of you, and that will be a ripple effect. We've already had, I think, over 10,000 people view the session from yesterday, for instance, and that's a lot of energy. That's a lot of people opening to this message and re-honoring, re-embracing not the concept of God, but the living presence, to make God accessible and to become an embodiment of God, to not shy away from that, to not keep this so separate. Like God is out there, God is this big force, and I'm just this little gremlin thinking in the backseat of my car, whispering into my own ear, thinking I am this limited creature, which I'm not. If we re-embrace our faith, our surrender, our devotion, and we combine that with scientific approaches to not measuring with devices. That's not necessarily scientific. That's one extension of science. But science is an approach. It's an attitude. It's doing something in a way that works. It's dissecting and explaining something in a way that works, that has testifiable results over and over and over again. We can practice the presence of God. We can practice surrender. We can practice forgiveness. We can explain it to children how this works, although adults need it more. We can explain it to people. You could go up to a stranger in the street, and if they were open to it, you could explain how to access God to them. It's both scientific and religious or spiritual. It's both in the domain of surrender as well as in the domain of control. You can control your path into God, but surrender is required as well. But you can know how this works. It is methodical in many ways. And yes, it all ends in mystery. And that's that beautiful marriage, isn't it? So let's re-embrace the Creator. Let's re-embrace the divine life. Let's make it here and now. Let's make it a lived thing, not a scriptural thing. Let's make your life God living. Because it is. Just aware of it. Just become aware of it now. Let's recognize it. All right, for those that are the Zoom participants, if you can hear me, give me a thumbs up. Yeah, okay, we just reconnected. Great. So another way, another practical way that's very much in alignment with what has already been shared in the session, to open the aperture to God's love, to become God's love. Again, you are it, but to know it, to feel it, to let it ooze out of you, to let it be this transformative alchemical power wherever you go, so that everything you touch turns to gold, turns to love. Sometimes gold has a reaction to love that seems to be a little bit bitter. But nevertheless, ultimately, long term, it will have an effect that is alchemical. Not everyone will appreciate you coming up to them with love or you just radiating love. But over time, it will marinate, those seeds will be planted, and it will grow into the tree of love. But another practical way is to intensify your service to others. Okay, this has been a big portion of my own journey. And this is what NLS is really all about, No Limits Society. It's training free agents for the ignition of global awakening, to really constitute ourselves. And right now I'm just extending this intention to everyone who's watching this outside of NLS as well. The intention is that at least for you to know that if you want to, you can be constituted as a shepherd. You can be constituted in service to others in a way that benefits you. Doesn't have to be martyrdom. It doesn't have to be self-sacrificial in a negative sense. You just have to sacrifice your arrogance, which for a lot of people feels negative, but it is positive. It is positive to give up your notions of right and wrong. It's positive to give up your ideas about what you are. It is positive to not believe in yourself so that you can attain to faith and know God, and from that mystery operate from love, from a timelessness. It's more than positive. It's enlightening. However, it can seem negative sometimes because we're holding on to this candlelight. We don't want to let go of the little gremlin illuminated intelligence that we think we have when we could turn the other cheek to ourselves and gaze upon the source of all that is and surrender to that and imbibe in that frequency. Recognize that and come from that. And when we become constituted, just like Ra said, then the adept no longer is a personality in the sense with which it began its learning journey. You become more than a personality. Your personality becomes empty, becomes a shapeshifter. It becomes a mirror of whoever it is meeting. It becomes a chameleon. It's no longer yours. Your person now belongs to the people. And fortunately or unfortunately, that's all they'll know you by for the most part. So they'll think that is you. But that's part of the self-sacrifice. Can you give up that last bit of, people don't understand me? Oh, people misjudge me. People misperceive my intentions. People misperceive why I said that. Can you let go of even that and turn away from that candlelight stick and turn towards the Creator once again? As Ra said, same thing ultimately. As Ra said, one who becomes the Creator becomes the most humble servant of all, completely transparent in personality and able to know other self. And so it's like that. But your personality becomes a jacket that you wear, a suit that you pick that day or that moment. Every moment, you pick another suit. And this becomes more and more intuitively, intelligently guided over time. It becomes automatic. You meet somebody, you don't even know a thing about them, and somehow you feel yourself distort yourself in a certain way because you're matching their vibration. Now make sure you maintain the frequency of love throughout that so that you don't get swallowed up in the jackets you're wearing. But you see, you become more than just a person. That's my main point here. I won't go too deeply into this because it's more technical and stuff. It's not the intention for this retreat. I want to keep it accessible. But you will find yourself opening up to the ability, to capacity to meet people where they're at while not getting swallowed up in that act of service, but automatically, more and more automatically, wanting to give the light of God, the love of God, wanting to give of yourself, wanting to make yourself available for service to others. And it's a very powerful way to further open, sometimes crank it open a little bit, because it's not always easy to be of service to others in the face of challenge and personal emotions, is it? Just with the forgiveness, when you're feeling the hurt and the righteousness, it's not that easy to completely forgive that whole experience. But you can do it. And the time to do it is now. And it will serve you more than them even. It will serve them too greatly, but it will serve you the most. So do this, give this gift of forgiveness and activate yourself more in service to others, because it also keeps the aperture more open. If your daily life is more, how can I be of service? How can my will be thy will? In other words, how can I serve the whole? No longer see myself as a separate particle, but sort of wave along with this ocean, this dreamscape, and just kind of blend with it and kind of be of service to it. Not without any personal boundaries or energy management, but nevertheless opening yourself up more and more to simply the intent to be of service to others, for thy will to be my will, to have that surrender, to have that passion and compassion. Because there's a lot of people out there, my friends, seeking and yearning and striving. And I mean, you guys are too, to some degree. But you have this access. You have these teachings, you have this community and so forth. But there's a lot of people, millions and millions and billions, that are seeking, they're yearning, they're craving, they're calling. If you could hear the energy, it'd be overwhelming. There was a time in my life when several times a week, I'd be bawling my eyes out. After a while, I realized I just kind of have to shut this off because it's not practical beyond a certain point. So I learned what I needed to learn from that, and I can open up to it anytime. I can open that valve, and I can have a good cry for humanity. I can hear the collective crying out. I can hear their suffering. And as part of what's kept me on track, and it's what's kept my personal energies available to be of service when a lot of times, just like goat cheese, I don't like humanity that much. And I'm sure a lot of people feel that way in their own ways. So, you know, there's a great mystery and magic looking around the matrix and seeing people in their bubbles, but it's not necessarily the house you want to live in all the time, right? And the deceit and the unconsciousness and the hateful intentions and the manipulation, all ultimately coming from an innocent place, ultimately, but nevertheless, the vibrations that are rampant throughout this planetary grid are kind of like goat cheese. No offense to goats, but so how then to keep being of service, my friends? How to keep shining bigger and greater, and how to conquer all the obstacles and the challenges? And it is by surrendering over and over again to the love of God, that non-dual, self-transcendent love that is, and in a relative fashion, when it comes to your relationship to the world, your life, other people, is to continue to intensify your service to others, to see, to sense their calling. And when you hear someone cry a genuine cry, not a drama cry, a genuine cry of despair, how could you not feel that and let it move you into, at the very least, sending love and light, if not compassionate action where appropriate or relevant? So to be able to feel, to sense, to be aware of the fact that there's billions of people crying for clarity, crying out for clarity, and they don't know. They don't know, but they seek for this. They seek for God. They seek for love. They seek for liberation. They seek for the end of self-judgment. And through your frequency, through your own constitution, just like Gandhi was constituted as a free, unified India, he made that happen. A single man, a single person, a single physical body made of pus and bones and blood, just as limited as yours. Maybe even more, because he was quite frail. Caused an entire shift in human history for a billion people and more indirectly. A single person. Now, of course, he had help and support, but nevertheless, from the point of view of that single person, he decided to constitute himself to be the change. I'm going to talk about this more tomorrow, how to do this, the metaphysics of this, how to conquer yourself in that way, how to attain to that state of power and invincibility when it comes to your mission, your destiny. He was constituted, he was that, regardless of consequence. Now that's service to others in the purest sense, where you are that. Yes, it takes some sacrifice, but it serves you because it cleanses your entire history of separation between you and God. This is what I call honor. This is like the next step of integrity. It's not just values and morals. It's actual integrity to God, to your calling, to what you know is true, and to stand by that no matter the ridicule, no matter the opposition, no matter the violence. If you can do that, my friends, hats off to you. I'll call you my best friend for life, BFFs. Because I know what it takes, and it takes the courage, and I wish to inspire this in as many people as possible, because right now it cannot just be one man, it cannot just be one woman. It's got to be the whole. It's got to be all of you. And if not you, if not us, if not this, we're privileged to even have this live stream right now. We're privileged to have access to this kind of teaching. We're privileged to be aware enough to even be able to work with ourselves consciously, spiritually, to have the time and energy and space to do that. And billions are not so in that state of readiness right now. They haven't created that opportunity for themselves. So you shouldn't feel guilty, but you are privileged in a beautiful way. And we should take this with gratitude and appreciation and pay it forward by being constituted in God's love, by not being so consumed with our personal little bubbles automatically every day when we wake up. We don't even know who the fuck we are, and we just think that whatever we think is the truth. Pause yourself. There's this quote, I'm paraphrasing, as a woman, I think. I don't remember her name. I posted on Instagram once. It said something like, for the first hour of your day, the first hour of your day belongs to God. It's kind of like this suggestion. Like when you wake up, for an hour, don't be yourself. Don't do your regular thing. Allow that 1 hour to belong to God. Call it meditation if you will. Call it contemplation. Call it openness. Call it surrender. Call it just loving. Call it activating service to others. But make the start of your day intentional and see beyond the bubble of your own life. Forgive the elements of your own life. Forgive yourself. Forgive the people in your life. and start loving like God loves. Start loving like the sun, not just like this little candle flame with self-interest. And it's perfectly fine to have your own desires. They're beautiful, and they will also be fulfilled along the way, as Jesus said, seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and all else shall be added on to you. But seek ye first the kingdom of heaven. What is that kingdom? It is God's love. It is the love of source. It is that non-dual, formless love that all can access. Take some practice, take some surrender, but all have access to it. It is accessible. It's not something in the sky, although it's also in the sky because it's everywhere. But it's not just in the sky. It's also in the earth. It's also in your body. It's also in your mind, like the neutrinos. 100 trillion God particles flying through you every second. Are you aware of that? No, you're aware of the grocery list you have to do, the taxes you have to do, the grudge you're holding against your neighbor, why he didn't cut his lawn in time this week, and it makes it look, not good with your lawn. That's what we're concerned with. If we don't pay attention, it's not what you mean to be concerned with. It's by no means representative of your soul. And trust me, I know that. It's not representative of who you are. And I don't hold that behavior against people. I don't hold it against myself either, if it happens. So I get it. It's easy to get swallowed up in the human bubble perspective. And in some senses, that's all you're designed to do here. However, God's love can take you far beyond that. It can truly transcend the 3D little bubble world. And there's an interesting process when that 3D bubble consciousness starts to be rubbed off on by this God presence. This is where the alchemy happens. This is where you become more than just a personality. This is where you become one with all that there is ultimately, more and more every day. And your service is going to be automatic. Ra also says in a different segment, for those who have attained to intelligent infinity, who have penetrated to intelligent infinity, God, essentially. Service to others is automatic. It's no longer a choice. They have no choice. It's choiceless. In that state, from that understanding, you cannot not be of service to others. It's literally drops away as a possibility. It's no longer an option. Not that you make a sacrifice, it's just no longer an option. Try to imagine that you cannot choose service to self. It's not possible. It doesn't mean that you don't enjoy going to a nice dinner and savoring the food, or take a bath for yourself and nourish yourself. All that is included, but even that is part and parcel energetically of being of service to the whole. There's not a single part of your life that is not naturally motivated in service to the whole. That becomes automatic after a certain threshold. But until that threshold, intensifying, making it more intentional for you to be of service to others, even though it kind of still works with the duality of self and others, which ultimately disappears because God's love is non-dual. But nevertheless, in this illusion, in a practical sense, on a day-to-day basis of where you're going to invest your energy and actions, if you make that more aligned with service to others, in whatever way comes most naturally, passionately for you, whatever your natural talents are, whatever your natural expression is, whatever your natural avenues are, to intensify that, you will already feel a great openness and a great surrender and a greater honorable alignment to God. Your will is starting to merge with thy will, with the whole intelligence of what's in the best interest of all that is. Okay, I'll take a couple of questioners and then we'll break and see you guys again for the session later today. I think the name says Rebecca. Is this little speaker on? Sweet, can you? We cannot hear you, Rebecca. At least I cannot. Is the little speaker on, guys? This one? I hear some sound here. Can you say something, Rebecca?
Okay, maybe now. Yeah, I think now it's working. Okay, perfect. Hi, Bentinho.
Hello, dear.
Okay, I don't even know where to start. There's so much in my mind. I'll try this. I've been more like into self. Huh? Can you hear?
Yes, I can hear you. Start by feeling into if it's like that, you know, if you have a question but maybe it's not entirely clear or maybe there's a lot of thoughts or context around it, just tune into your heart for a second and ask yourself, what is it really that I desire to gain out of this interaction? What's the end result that I'm yearning for? Because questions are just a means to an end to satisfy you. So what is it that's unsatisfied? And what kind of satisfaction is it looking for? If you can start from that space of what you truly actually desire to get out of this interaction with me, and then maybe even start with that question, and then if context is needed, we can bring the context in to clarify the question. Mm-hmm. So what is it that you most want to know or experience or get out of this?
I would love to understand better how God or the difference between God and soul, and how there's somehow still this individuation even within you. It seems that you are so evolved and awakened or enlightened, but you're still speaking out of this mouth, this body. Before you mentioned that you can really feel into others, and sometimes you have to stop that, right? Because it becomes too much. But still, it's like, how does it still happen when you are recognized God, that you are still somehow this attachment to this body? And where does soul fit in there? Or, yeah.
Beautiful. Wow. Yeah. Thank you. Can we mute her while I'm speaking? Yeah. God is formless and one, but it's also infinite. And the nature of infinity, at some point, not really a point in time, but that's kind of how we have to talk about it, desired to know itself, became curious. One of the infinite possibilities of infinity is to develop a desire to know itself, because it's one option of infinity. Now, the human mind might say, why, if God is complete, would it create creation? Why, if infinity is infinite, would it want to know itself? But those are mental, human, linear, 3D-based questions. Now, in an infinite, again, our minds cannot comprehend this ever. We can only imagine it a little bit, but we cannot even approximate it. So we have to understand with humility that we cannot comprehend with our minds infinity. Only infinity can comprehend infinity, and you can experience that directly. It's possible. That's sort of the absolute realization that's possible, is where you are the infinite. Impossible to describe. But on a more day-to-day level, so to speak, just to understand that infinity implies infinite possibilities. And infinite possibilities implies infinite possibilities. And one of the possibilities must be that the one infinite creator desires to know itself. And so out of that, what we would perceive as nothingness, which is really just infinite unity and potential, emerge the ability of knowing, consciousness, awareness, the freedom of will, the ability to know and discern and create. And then there was love, and then there was light. And so the universe came into being in all the different ways that it can. However, this is just context for your question. Just like, let's say you start a company, just to use a very human example. If you start a company and you're the CEO, you have the core intention for that company is to know itself. Let's just say your company is an analogy for the creator. You as the CEO, as God, decide you want to create an organization or a company whose intention, whose calling, whose mission it is to express and know itself, infinite possibilities. Now, in any company structure, in any organization, you would want to divide yourself up into all these specified sparks so that you can experience things from all the different angles and points of view, including those of limitation or finiteness. Because infinite possibilities includes the experience of infinite versions of finiteness. It's all part of infinity. Infinity doesn't negate anything. Infinity isn't just this one thing. Infinity is literally infinity, which means infinite possibilities as well. Infinite nothingness, infinite everythingness, infinite variety. And somehow none of it ever is in conflict with unity. And this is where the mind fails us as a mechanism. And in the Love One also, they use the term true simultaneity, and I've adopted this in different ways throughout the years. So the term true simultaneity is to understand that from that infinite source, there is nothing that opposes it. How could it? So there is no separation. So that means that even the illusion of separation does not cause any separation. It doesn't cause any paradox. It's only to the linear mind that this is impossible to resolve. But from an innate, intrinsic understanding of this infinity, this infinite unity, there is no paradox. It's mysterious, but there is no paradox. There is no conflict. There's no opposition to one infinite unity. Nothing could ever be created that opposes infinite unity. It's impossible by definition. So we have to first understand that your question is inspired by what you know with the mind. How you've been living your life physically, like bumping into objects, seeing either black or white, seeing either the object is over here, it's in location A, or in location B. It doesn't appear at the same time in both spots from your physical linear point of view. But God is infinite, timeless unity, and it includes every possibility that can ever possibly be, and all of it is already created. But now it's creating these agents, these souls, if you will, these sparks of itself, these co-creative components, just like you as a CEO are going to hire managers and employees and so forth to fulfill your intention more effectively. Infinite intelligence is also intelligent in its organizational principle. So this universe, this illusion, is stacked upon itself. It's organized, it's structured metaphysically in a very precise and intelligent way. This is why we could metaphysically learn and begin to describe the different dimensions, the evolution of consciousness, the difference in higher frequencies and lower frequencies, and what happens to the vehicles and to the consciousness. And we can effectively describe the evolutionary journey, the general evolutionary journey of a soul or an aspect of God, a free agent expression of God, as it makes its journey throughout this illusion, this grand illusion of the creation, fulfilling the intention at all times to express the creator in a new way that it never has expressed itself before, and therefore to know itself and what it's capable of, to know more of its infinite nature by means of that expression. And so the soul is simply an agent of God, but nevertheless, you are God. It's not like you are this agent and God is over there that created the agent. You are God, true simultaneity. You are God. You are the agent of the soul, and you are the personality that you choose to be right now. In fact, you are everything because you are infinite unity. You are every blade of grass. You are every distortion from your gremlin mind. You are every fucked up thing that ever happened to you. You are every great thing that ever happened to you. You are every fucked up thing that ever happened to anybody in any universe. You are every beautiful thing that ever happened to anybody in any universe. Literally, in the truest level of your being, you are all things, including this little person. So yes, it's this miraculous wonder that we have a specific association with a specific body as a specific soul. And I mean, I could put this in more technical terms, but really at the end of the day, it does begin and end in mystery, and it's just the way that it appears to be. But it all the most important thing I feel is for people to understand that it all coexists simultaneously, and that it's simultaneously valid and true, and that there's nothing, no seeming separation could ever truly oppose the one infinite creator. There's never actual separation. There's never actually two. Somehow this illusion of duality is an illusion through which the one can get to know itself in an infinite amount of ways that it couldn't if it just stayed non-dual. If it just stayed non-dual and perfectly timeless and formless, it lacks the expression of learning about itself in all the infinite ways that it can. I don't know if this answers your question or confuses you more. We will unmute you in a second, so you can follow up if you want to.
No, it's made some things more clear, but I think I have to re-listen to it again and let it settle more. But so there's kind of like the soul is almost like a sub-god, and the way I, as Rebecca, I think it is still, I mean, I'm on this, or we all are on a spiritual progression, and that goes probably in a way, it's a step-by-step journey, realizing one after the other.
Yes, in general, that is true.
And
ironically, typically, I'm a big fan of intellectual mapping and making it understandable and scientific for people. However, I'm an even bigger fan of surrendering to the mystery. It may be hard to believe for some people always hear me talk and distill new teachings. And as much as I appreciate the ability to do that, I'm a bigger fan of surrendering to God. Because when you surrender to God, you make more progress than when you're trying to map out your progress. You're going to progress anyway. You're going to evolve. You're going to realize more of who you truly are anyway. What's the most effective means? Is to become the mystery. It's to become that love.
Maybe
then
that
if you were to map it on, like where am I at? You see, oh, I'm quote unquote made more progress in my evolution by not even focusing on my progress so much in the intellectual way or understanding it, but by actually surrendering my understanding of it and just abiding more and more in the God state, more and more closely connected to God, letting myself be more and more empty of insistence and arrogance and more open to God's love. And then if you were to place it back on the map of evolution, you see like, whoa, I gained a lot on this map. And I didn't even care about it because I was too busy enjoying and radiating the love of God.
Yeah, I experienced that recently when I tried to I did that, I surrender. But still sometimes my mind wants to understand things, and
Sure, no, and that's perfectly valid.
Questions come up.
And
very often, actually, it's incredible how often you address exactly the question I have, and it's answered, or somewhere else I find the answer. A lot of synchronicities are happening, and I think that's probably something that's happening due to surrender. And I noticed that my biggest desire is actually knowing, understanding, or that's what I think, but I also believe that it could be an obstacle. Like, as you said, if I want to understand, to what to grasp it with my mind.
Totally, and it's such a beautiful desire. And I wouldn't want to say anything to dissuade you from that desire. I would just make the nuance that to truly know often requires a letting go of the intellectual knowledge. But I mean, I've been doing both for the longest time now, at least in this incarnation. So to me, it's not a conflict. Like I can have a very precise intellectual description of the stages and the path and the nuances, and that's part of why I'm teaching. It's because it is helpful, and it has been super helpful. I wish I knew what I know now intellectually when I was 20 years old or like 18 years old or seeking, because it would have helped me tremendously. So absolutely, the power of clear intellectual understanding is invaluable. But at the end of the day, you can go all day mapping it out. You can go all day understanding it. And it can give you clarity and new nuances. It can open up your energy centers. So it really is powerful. It really is. It's not separate from surrender. They very much work in tandem. But if we get too excessively like contracted around the understanding, and we forget to relax, and we forget to surrender and have faith, then it comes at the expense of deeper growth and deeper surrender. But if you can harmonize those two, if you can, yes, have a passion for the intellectual understanding of it, and see the impact it has when you understand, when you have a new insight, when you see a new perspective. That is not intellectual per se, that is spiritual. Having a perspective shift is a spiritual change, a transition. It's not just intellectual, but the intellect can help you accomplish that. Absolutely. And if you can balance that with just faith and surrender and not knowing, you got the perfect blend, and you're on an accelerated ride into knowing the Creator and expressing it more purely, more freely.
You know so much. I mean, that's maybe one last question I would have. How does all this knowledge come to you for the moment?
The less you know, the more access you have.
That's a paradox, huh?
Yes.
One of the many.
And I have spent a lot of time intensely distilling intellectual concepts and teachings and bodies of work and writing and reading and teaching. And so, after 20 years of doing that intensely every day, your brain does develop a capacity for knowledge, for meta thinking, for seeing how all the concepts interrelate, and so there is a big mind map available to me. That is, but the thing is, it's not active when I don't want it to. It's not active when I don't need it. It's not who I am anymore. And it used to be more of an obstacle for me. Right now, it's just like an available network. Like when you look at the cosmos and you see constellation here, constellation there, and it's just beautiful. You can appreciate it, but it's not who you are. It's similar to that. Also, I'm not really talking when I'm speaking. I'm not thinking of what I'm saying. I'm not preparing what I'm saying. Sometimes I make some notes because I feel sort of to make sure that I hit the topics. Because if I completely go on a tangent and just let whatever, then sometimes I don't address the notes that I feel are relevant. But I don't prepare anything. I don't think about what I'm saying almost ever. So it's hard for me to say, like, this is me speaking as a person. Does that make sense? Or that I'm not speaking to you from a library of concepts. It's not what's happening. It's not my experience. I'm empty. And so I'm available. And so to your former question, actually, why maintain the individuation? Remember, you asked something along those lines. And again, that is because in that wholeness, in that automatic service to others, there is an understanding of the value of what this particular vehicle, with this particular brain and mind map, how it's trained itself, can be of service to billions of people that are seeking, that are calling for clarity. So it's an offering, it's an availability that I maintain, but it's not who I am. Like I said, it's shape-shifting. It's what I call a mirror being. It's shape-shifting depending on what's needed. It's available for what seems to be in highest benefit. So there, you could say there's an individuation, but it's very thin. It doesn't cast a big shadow between the sun and the earth, if you will, or between the wholeness and the individuation. There isn't a whole lot of contrast anymore. But it's still there, and it's a vehicle for service. And I'm still learning every day. I'm learning faster than I've ever learned before, even though I'm less dependent on any concept for anything. So it's a big paradox, it's a big mystery, but your intelligence will only skyrocket more and more and more the more you surrender and trust and have faith. Not at the expense of the intellect, but the intellect must be subservient to the will of love.
Yeah.
You cannot contain love in a mind map or in an intellectual understanding. But the intellect is a great tool. So I really value both. And I think we absolutely need both as humans. So I hope this clarifies some things for you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. It was a joy to interact with you. No, still can't read the name. What's the next one, Mesh? Try this one. Marina! Yay!
Hello, greetings, Bentinho. Greetings, everyone on the call, on the stream.
Welcome. What's your question?
Thank you. I actually have two things I want to say. The first is an apology, and the second is a question. Which one should I start with?
Please apologize first because I've been so mad at you.
Okay. You most likely don't even need this apology, but I probably doing it for me more than
Great.
for you. But either way, I want to offer my apology because for something I did a while ago, and I was not in a good state of consciousness and mind. I think the gremlin was activated very big, and I have done things on Instagram, doing comments, and they were unpleasant and unpolite and unwise. And I think I realized that I was triggered AF, but that was after I was blocked by you on Instagram. So that happened.
Oh, nice.
And it's been going on, like, energetically, it's there. So I just wanted to clear that path as I'm creating my new story right now. It's important for me to let it go.
This is wonderful. This is so beautiful. Thank you. Great testament. And I don't remember any particular comments by you. I don't remember interacting with you. So it's all good. You're forgiven because you were never condemned to begin with. But as an example of what you're doing here, as a testament of exactly the intention of this retreat and the transformative power and the forgiving power and the honesty here that you're showing, I think is remarkable. And I want to thank you for this demonstration.
Thank you.
So completely forgiven.
Awesome. I'm so glad that's going to make a difference, energetic difference in my life.
Yeah,
I also have a question about forgiveness, which was arisen right now as I was listening to you. So you mentioned this energy, I'm forgiving of you. I forgive you, versus forgive me. Is this energetically different charge, or is it fundamentally different in nature, or is it kind of the same?
It's completely the same, actually. Yeah. It's completely the same. And you cannot fully forgive self without forgiving others, and vice versa. You cannot fully forgive others without forgiving self. It's a package deal because you've never had an interaction. Usually forgiveness has to do with people, right? Or sometimes towards God, like, why God? Why are you doing this to me? But it's relational. It's between our perceived me and some other person or some other deity or entity or creator or life or the universe. So it's relational. So there's a duality in that perspective. If there was no duality in our feeling state, if there was a non-dual sense of love, then there wouldn't be a need to forgive, because there wouldn't be condemnation, because there wouldn't be the perception of separation. Does that make sense so far? This is just concept, like context. To the heart of your question, if I forgive you completely, let's say I've been bothered by something you wrote on Instagram. If I forgive you completely, then in the process of forgiving you completely, I'm automatically forgiving, I have to forgive myself for even resenting you or judging you for what you did. Mm-hmm. Because I cannot hold a grudge to something you did. Now, you might have actually done something to me, so to speak, and it may have actually not been the wisest, most loving thing. That might be an accurate observation. that you were, let's say you sent a hateful or disturbing message on Instagram, you could observe that that's not ideal behavior and it's not really representative of who you truly are and who I would like you to be in interaction with me. That's all fine. But in order for me to hold a grudge with you, I have to first put myself in a position of being a judge. I cannot forgive you if I didn't first judge you, you see? And the only reason I would judge you is because of separation. And that's my own flawed perspective that is a work in progress. So beautiful. So when I completely forgive you, I'm automatically forgiving myself because I don't want to hold a grudge. I don't want to be judging you. I don't want to produce separation between you and I. I don't want to obscure the love that I want to really feel for you with like hateful thoughts and righteousness and she did this to me. So I'm really forgiving myself when I'm forgiving you. And if I completely forgive myself, I get back in touch with this non-dual love, and then I no longer condemn you. So I've forgiven you automatically, and there's no condemnation there. So it's very much package deal. It's just the way you want to look at it, but it's really the same thing.
That's awesome. Totally landed.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you again. And are you still blocked on Instagram from my page? Would you like me to unblock you?
Yes.
Great.
That would be awesome.
What's your Instagram tag? Get some free exposure.
Marina Yoga NYC.
Marina Yoga.
This is like surreal. It's been for years like this. And it's not like I need the access to Instagram. I would love to. I can access your account from a different account if I need to, but but the energetic case was closed.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Sweet. Thank you so much. Again, I really appreciate the demonstration here. I think it will help a lot of people. Thank you. Took courage, you see. And courage, here's the thing, like this is why I'm so big on courage and honor. It's not, I don't want to do it out of a military sense, you know, like a principle, like we got to be honorable. But at the same time, it's of service to yourself. In this quagmire experience of so many human conditions and so many human challenges and so many distortions and layers of self-deceit that you don't even know are going on, honor can be this rectifying, this purifying light. Like, because you know at some level when something is truly honorable or not honorable. And it can look very different than what people think should be honorable. But you will know, and you'll get clearer and clearer on this, the closer you get to that God state more frequently. The more you recognize that, the more you open the aperture, you become so clear on what's honorable that even the fear of death, physical death, will no longer keep you from your honor, will no longer keep you from your commitment to this honor. At that point, it's automatic and natural. But to kind of get there, to get closer to God, to live honorably, simplifies the thousands of choices you are faced with every day. Because if you just choose honor and don't think about the consequences anymore, your life would realign itself very fast. And your sense of being honorable in your connection with God, to not have any of that stuff, that self-doubt, that kind of, I could have done better here, the procrastination feelings, that self-judgment. If you live honorably to the best of your ability, it's soothing. It's like God is giving you a pat on the back without ego. But it's like a feeling of alignment that happens. Does that make sense? Whereas, you know, if you don't do the honorable thing, even though maybe it looked like the nicer thing and other people are praising you for it, but you know it wasn't the truest, most honorable thing, you're building up some dirt on your mirror between you and God. But if you clean that dirt, you feel free, and then other people have to deal with whatever they think that means. And you'll have to deal with the repercussions of what other people think that means. You know, wherever your own attachments lie with that, it's not always easy. But if you can conjure up the courage to live with honor and to not overthink the consequences, just live moment to moment in the most honorable way, take the most honorable actions, say the most honorable things, devote yourself to the most honorable directions in your life, think the most honorable thoughts, make the most honorable corrections, live true. It's a straight line up to alignment, to God, and it will open that aperture more and more. Karsten,
Yes. Hello. Bentinho.
Hey, hello.
Hey, um,
This will be the last questioner for this session. Otherwise, it's going to take too long
sure.
per session.
It's just that I've noticed in my life, and now intensified with you, is that I let myself guide from you, and I feel like, wow, I'm almost enlightened, and it feels good. And then eventually I get a desire to do something with it, like, for instance, interact with you, and I move my hand to put the hand up, and then this panic comes, or this super, like, intensified fear. And I notice it in my life also when I want to do something that feels right to some degree. But now with you, it almost comes in and chokes me out, like, very intensely. And then is that a part of the purifying, or what is that?
Absolutely, yes. You'll go through peaks and valleys as you purify, as you give yourself more to honor to God. You're going to, in a sense, be naturally, very organically, your higher self, technically, is going to be accelerating how you're moving through your sequence of challenges in life. And these challenges are going to bring out the stuff that you say you are now beyond. Like, always be, almost every time we proclaim, oh, now I've got it, the very next minute you'll get a challenge, right? So it's not about not claiming that. Like, sometimes it's good to claim, like, whoa, this is it. Like, I do have it, because it's true. You do actually do have it. But then can you stay faithful to that, even in the midst of intense fear coming up? So when the fear then comes up, when the panic comes on, can you rest as awareness, as the space? Can you allow it to be perception that moves through the space of your awareness? Can you stay true to that loving attitude that God has, that's automatic, that doesn't get affected by even panic? Doesn't mean you don't feel the panic. Doesn't mean it goes away necessarily. It will faster, but as a sensation, it's very much there. But can you not be distracted by it? Can you not give it meaning? Can you rest as naked awareness? Can you maintain a loving, peaceful aloofness that's loving and intimate, but it is also not affected while your body is raging with panic? I know it can be harder than other emotions, but but that is the way to practice maintaining your faith, keeping your faith in God's love, and not bringing back the insistent, arrogant thinker that knows what's going on. Oh, I'm feeling this, therefore this, I should do that. No, no, protect yourself. That's a gremlin, like rah, 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 contracting, and then hijacking your experience and giving all these justifications as to why you shouldn't or do that. But if you stay honorable, committed, faithful to God, know that you're infinite, know that the nature of you is God's infinite love. So what could happen to you? You're invincible. A feeling, a sensation, an emotion, a distraction cannot conquer you. It's impossible. You've always been here. You'll always be here. And the testament of that is in your own I amness. It's never changed. When you were 8 years old looking in the mirror, I am was there. When you're looking into my eyes right now, I am is there. The I am has not a single dent or scratch in it. Nothing leaves a trace. No emotion leaves a trace. Panic leaves no trace, except if we keep thinking about it, conjuring it up, conjuring it up, conjuring it up. But if we're resting in God's love, then anything that appears is naturally self-released. It appears, we don't indulge it, we allow it to be, we don't describe it, we have faith in God's love, we just rest in awareness, and it goes poof. And the next emotion, the next conditioning unfolds, the next challenge. Let it be, trust, have faith. Don't do anything with it for a few seconds at a time. And it's gone. And more you're able to not think even. When you can reduce the entire universe to nothing in a split second by stopping all the imagination. And then all you know is God. But that takes practice typically. But if we just rest in awareness, when these appearances appear, they will naturally release themselves. And the tensions that were held there unconsciously will heal. Yeah. So if you bring God's love to whatever challenge arises, it's a healing process that gets accelerated. The stuff is going to come up when you elevate your frequency. The relevant stuff. So the stuff that's holding you back down here, when you start to claim that you're more of God's love vibrationally, when you start to feel that, now the stuff that you're still also kind of believing in, but that's of a lower vibrational nature, is going to be forced to the surface to face the light of your sun. Now, if you then grasp back to the gremlin's suggestions, start justifying and calling it this or that, or even calling it intuition, or calling it guidance or resonance. Oh, this doesn't resonate with me. Are you sure? Or are you just scared? Is it just a gremlin talking, trying to preserve itself? But if you face it honorably, with commitment, naked, no matter the consequences, even physical death, no matter the consequences, honorably, have faith in God's love and face whatever the panic is, it goes poof, and God's love shines forth ever more brightly. And that's the test, that's the challenge. Every moment. Can you rest in God's love? Can you rest in naked, pure consciousness? Not make anything wrong, not judge anything, not give anything a particular meaning. Just let it all be. And it will dissolve and heal itself. It will self-release. If you don't do anything with it for just a few seconds, just pure awareness, it's like empty sky. It's like drawing a line in the air. Takes practice, takes faith, but you can do it. It's accessible.
A lot easier here where there's no actual thing causing it. It just comes out like there's nowhere to point to.
Well, there is a cause, which is a belief.
Right.
On a relative level, you could say there is a cause, which is the belief. There is a belief. The belief produces the panic. Had you not had that belief, you would not have the panic. Okay. So there is a cause in that sense. But the approach to healing it is a causeless approach. Meaning you're not attributing cause to it. You're not describing it. You let it arise. And if you let it be exactly as it is, and you just shine with awareness, you just have faith in love, you stay undistracted as much as you can, it will self-release. And then also the belief in the unconscious mind will begin to dismantle itself by the love and the light that you're letting through, by opening your aperture, letting it be naked. Naked experiencing over and over again. Moments of just naked being, naked awareness. No grasping, no controlling, no replacing anything, no defining anything. Empty, naked, loving God awareness, moment to moment, just for short moments. Repeat it many times. Yes?
Yes.
Yes. And your best practice ground, your only training ground is your incarnational life. That's why you signed up for it. The unique challenges particular to you and the balances that your soul wants to learn are perfectly emergent in your life's day-to-day experiences. So that's the training ground. That's where to apply the teachings, is your very specific life experience.
Good. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. All right, my friends, that's wonderful. I will see you again for the next session, which is in how many hours? 3, right? A little bit less than 3 hours. All right. See you then. Much love.